Well, good afternoon. I basically have my wires ran. I've got the charging system all plumbed up. That's all good. And now I got a left and right turn signal. These are my green and yellows. I got a high beam and a low beam, which is blue and white. And I've got this black wire running for a parking light. Don't have any horn or anything like that in it. But I got this light switch here. It's all kind of wired up. I've stretched my wires here. I mean, it don't look like it's anywhere near complete, because it isn't. But I got my little front harness I made, and I've got this one here, 4 wires going into it, green and yellow, my left and right. Instead of the black there, instead of parking, that's the tail lights, and the white wire is going to be the fuel sender. I probably need to put one more in there for a backup light, and I got them run through the frame here, and roughly coming out here where they go. So I've got left, right, tail signal, tail light, and like I said, my white's going to run up there for the fuel. So this is the basic guts of the wiring harness. I had plenty of wire. I'm going to have a lot left, plus I got a whole bunch there. Most of that stuff coming out of that fuse block is going to be going up somewhere in the dash or wherever. But this is the basic start to the wiring harness. I left plenty of room up here in the front. You know, the headlight bars here, the headlight's about here, so this is plenty to get up in there and do that. And I'll have to, I don't even have turn signals up here yet, but I'll have to do that. Don't really need a lot of wires in here. I decided to use this red wire. I'm going to run it over there to the electric choke. But I've got a lot of blue wire left. Normally, you know, because blue's high beam, I use blue for high beam. I just have to label everything, because where it goes into this connector up here, you know, I've only got 4 or 5 colors. But the left and right turn signals will be the same front to back. The parking light and tail lights is going to be black. That'll be fine. I had a white wire going up to the front. I forget what that one was for. I forget easy. That's why I label everything. Oh, that's my low beam. So not much chance of mixing up a fuel sending unit with a low beam. But I'll label them there where they go into the main harness. I've got it stretched, pretty much routed around, and I figured out how I can mount it. I got plenty of room. Of course, nothing's really bolted down, so I'll get it hooked up into the dash where it goes, with the gauges where they go. I did make a mistake. I took the main power wire from the battery into the fuse block there. This is big red wire right there. I hope you can see it. Anyway, there's a red wire right there. So I have to cut that. The one side of that's going to go to the amp meter. And I'll have to splice another wire in there. And the other side will go to the positive side of the amp meter on the battery. So that way my amp meter will work. It'll show draw on the whole system. And if it's actually charging to the battery, it'll show charge. So that's pretty much it. Don't look like much, but it took me all day. But now it's basically routed, and I can start making sure I got all the wires, and then I'll have to get some tape when I get it kind of final, pull this all out of here and tape it up, so I've got a kind of a good harness like a normal one. And then if I have to run an extra wire or something, well, it'll just have to go on top. But I can sort out where everything goes and get the wires pulled into the right length. And then I can tape up this whole thing. It'll probably take me 2 or 3 rolls of tape. But it'll look pretty good. So really, I gotta put something in here for this fan. My fan came, it really moves the air. I thought about putting it in front, but it really sticks out, looks bad. But it will fit in the back. I'll have a little problem mounting that cooler, because it's got to overlap that cooler about an inch. But that'll be one of the next projects, to mount that fan on here good. I got plenty of room so I can get it on and off, and figure out the wiring for how I'm going to do that. I've got a port over here that I can take out. That's where the temperature sending switch goes. I'll probably just try to run that all down this radiator hose here. I'm not sure how I'll do that. It's wires, so really no reason why I can't just run it over here into this harness and up. Anyway, a lot of little stuff to do yet, but getting the main harness sorted out, headlight switch, getting all that to the right length and cut. And I also hooked up my key and starter, so that's all good. I haven't figured out how to put a neutral lockout in it yet. There's a sending unit down on the, or a switch down there on a transmission that has reverse and neutral in it. I used a big heavy wire on that starter. I don't know how much amp it's drawing, but I used a big, good fat wire. I may take that relay and, put a relay in there for the starter lockout. But I was thinking it would be better to leave the starter where you can turn it over but use a relay to kill the ignition. That way I'm not running a fairly heavy power draw through the relay. I haven't figured that out yet, whether I'll use a relay or how I'll do that exactly. I don't know what the how this switch is really wired here down in the transmission. It's got 3 wires in, so I think it probably makes contact when it's in park and makes contact when it's in reverse. But I'll fool around with that, get that switch sorted out, and I'll get it plumbed into the wiring. I know it's kind of a boring video, but that's what I got done today. Well, here's the next chapter in this building a wiring harness. What I've done, I've mounted the fuse block. I've got my power wires running over there to the key for the main power, key on, and I used an accessory terminal there that would put power to the key on. So basically I've got power running to it. Now my main power wire that I've got running to the fuse block, it's a red wire, and so what I did, I spliced it right there, and I've got this red and white wire. Now this is going to run up to my amp meter gauge, so at least I've got the same basic wires, white with a red with a white tracer. I know that goes to my amp meter gauge. I'm going to cut these off here. I'm going to put the gauge cluster in it. I'm going to cut these off and measure it to length, and then I'm going to wrap it up into this harness here. This wire here I've got, it's also bent, and what this is going to be is for the heater. So I've basically got one end of it going to the heater, and you can see I've taped it on the firewall there. Oh, a little too much light. I've taped it on the firewall. That's the one end of it, comes around, bends to right here. My switch will go in here, and the heater will go right there. So that's power coming out, around to the switch, and over to the heater. On this mess over here, I've got the same thing. I've got wires running for every circuit I need. This back one here, I've got green, white, yellow, black, and blue. Now the blue and our blue and yellow are brakes and turn signals. The black wire, I believe, is for a backup light. The white wire is going to the fuel tank, and I think I've got the green wire going for a reverse light. So basically I've put all of the wires in that I need going to the back, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is how you go about building a harness, is find the stuff that you know you're going to need, and I just use little wire ties to kind of put them in place or locate them. Like you see, I got a couple there on the brake line, just to hold this stuff up and out of the way. And then after that, I just use a piece of tape, and I tape every one, and I say what they are. Like this one here is brake rears, I believe it says. Oh no, this is the brake and reverse light. So this is a power wire. I've got it running over there. I've got it wrapped around the brake. So there's going to be a switch in there, and it comes around to the transmission, and it's going pretty close to the reverse light switch. So the brake and reverse lights are always hot, key on. So that's what you do. You just run the wires that you got. Don't worry about, I mean, you try to get them where they're gonna, once they're tied into harness, they're out of the way. Like all this mess up here, this will go into a pretty nice harness, and I can gather all this up and put it up here with a clip under that angle iron. It'll look fine. So first thing, run the wires that you need. You can use wire ties to locate them where the main harness is going to go, and then after that I just use tape. Tape them like this heater wire here. It's taped on the firewall. I know the heater's going there. And leave yourself an extra 6 inches or a foot of wire, because it's real easy to cut it off, and it's not so easy to splice it back on. I got quite a few wires coming out of the fuse blocks here that I'm not going to use. There's a radio and a wiper and the solenoid relay power wire. There's probably a ground wire for it, or no, it's grounded, but it'd be a power wire for the relay, and then the relay out. I got a brake and a radio, air conditioning, something else. But none of these wires are really going to be used in this main harness. I'll use them for something else, and I don't know what yet, but I'm going to go ahead and hook up this alternator, or this amp meter gauge here, and I'll show you how I wire this stuff and make sure you have a good connection and it ain't never going to fail. Alright, I've got these two wires here cut and stripped, and I got about a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch, a little bit too much. And what I do is pull it all the way through the terminal and then bend it over. This accomplishes 2 or 3 things. One is, once it's bent over like that, this is not going to fall off while you're trying to solder it or trying to get a hold of it with a clamp. And once it's soldered, it ain't never pulling out. Of course, you ain't getting it apart either, but that's not the point. And then get yourself a good pair of crimpers. Don't use those little flat ones. They really don't work. I mean, they're good enough to just crimp something, but these have 2 sides on them. You see one side's colored, and if you're looking close in there, you can see that it's got a little plate that's raised up. Well, that little plate goes here right next to the, see if I can do this one-handed, right next to the end. Yeah, that's good. So I've got the plastic there almost flush with the back. You squeeze these a little, they'll lock, but you go all the way until it closes and then let it up. And then what this does, it really squishes it here right on the end where the metal is, and that clamps your wire. Just with this clamp, probably 99% of the time, out of 100 connections you make, it's going to be good enough. In that case, you don't have to worry about pulling a wire through like I did. but I'm going to solder it here, and I want something for that solder to stick to. Let me clamp that other one and we'll look at it. Well, here's a technique that works real well for me. I just use one of these little butane lighters, and you can see right there almost immediately it heated it up. I need both hands to do this, but you just heat it up, put your solder on it, and as soon as it gets hot enough, the solder will suck right in there. I'll go ahead and solder these for you. And of course, you can solder any way you want. A good electric heat gun is another solution, but I find this is works really good. Gets it hot fast, doesn't smoke up your wires. You don't have to mess with another heat gun and wires and this and that. But once you get it hot, and you keep your heat down here so you keep it off your plastic, once those wires get hot, it'll suck right into there. So now that ain't never coming off, and it's got a good connection. Not only is it crimped, I probably got solder up into it too, but at any rate it won't pull out and it won't come loose. So those I don't know, they're a couple bucks at the liquor store, convenience market, wherever you can find them. I got another one for, it's a little longer. I ordered it. It's for, you know, burning a crisp on food or something. It's probably about 6 inches long, but it holds a lot more fuel. But that works really good. You can solder a pretty good sized solder. A little tiny heat gun really won't, a little solder gun really won't melt this big a solder. And I like to put plenty on it. So now this is done. I'm going to go ahead and mount my gauge in there and hook this up, and then I'll give this a test to see if it's drawing current. Alright, I got that hooked up to the key on side of the fuse box. I've got a headlight here, and I've got both of high and low hooked up. And if you see here, it's showing me a discharge. So, alternator's in, the voltage regulator's in. I'm still keeping my harness kind of tied tight here. I've got it the right length. And now I got power going where it's supposed to go. I had it hooked into always on power. That's wrong. So it wasn't doing anything. But now I had to take it out of that and put it into the key switch power. I don't know what I was thinking about, which is these big yellow wires here. Now I'll hook up the other one. That's a constant power. That one there goes to the brakes, and oh, what else? Anyway, always on power. So we'll press on with the next little part. Well, I hooked my main power wire up. It's this big green one here. I've just got it jumpered. You got no place to hook this light. Maybe there. Well, got a lot of glare, but you can see the amp gauge. Now when I turn it on, you see it moved about 1 amp, something like that. So, and I think that's that relay up there. It's as soon as you turn the key on, the relay will click. And I've also got This is a mess here. I've got my automatic choke or electric choke hooked up, so that's drawing a little bit. Now, if I hook up this alternator to the battery side of the power system, if I turn the key off, it'll still charge. So what has to happen is this wire here that's going to the terminal, I had to run power to it. I didn't have it run up here yet because I don't want the thing, you know, because if you hook it on the other side of the load side of the key and you shut the key off, the alternator's charging, it won't shut off. It just keeps running until you can finally lug it down to where the alternator quits charging. So what I did, I used a little circuit for, no, I don't know what it was, radio or something, and I ran it around here and hooked it into the positive side. So when you shut the key off, there's no positive to the regulator. It can't charge and it dies. So anyway, that's how I got this charging system hooked up. And what I've done here, I've hooked a battery charger onto it, and I'm gonna set this to engine boost. So right now it's not really doing much of anything because it's not hooked up to the battery. But a minute to turn this key on, if that battery charger is charging, it should show me a positive charge rate here. Nope. Maybe it's not charging. We'll see. We'll go back here to the charger. But anyway, that's how you check which side of the... Oh yeah, it's charging. It's just not... Oh, it's clicking on and off. Well, let's see if it's charging here. No, yep, it's showing charge now. So I turn the key on, it discharges. Anyway, I'll fool around with this some more, get this the amp meter working properly. But that's one way, you know, I've had charged motors like that. I set them up and wired them and hooked them up, and they start and you turn the key off and nothing happens. It just keeps running. But on this particular one here, the way I've got it wired, you turn the key off, kills the alternator, and it'll quit charging, so the motor has to die. Anyway, press on to something else. Alright, I moved that wire over to the other side of the amp gauge. The charger's hooked up, and I've turned the key on. Yeah, see, it's charging like 15 amps right now. And there's our 0. 15 amps. And before, when I turned the key on, it was showing, you know, about 1 or 2 amps draw. But that's the way the amp meter needs to be hooked up. That's good. So I got all my charging circuit figured out now. I'll have to take this this wire and jumper I got on here and put a terminal on it, get up there and bolt it down good to that amp gauge, and that'll finish my charging circuit.